Hello everyone, this is Lord Beebus. How to fix Super Saiyan 4? Well, many of you will probably say that it doesn't need fixing, it's perfect just the way it is. I disagree, and in this video I'll tell you why. Let's start with some history. Super Saiyan 4 was designed by Toei Animation character designer Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru for the anime-only continuation of the Dragon Ball story, Dragon Ball GT. It was designed as the next power-up above Super Saiyan 3 and was the workhorse transformation for Goku ever since first achieved, fulfilling much of the same role as Dragon Ball Super's Super Saiyan Blue. The form is well liked among the fandom, probably for reasons such as it being violent-looking, primal, muscular, different than the rest, badass, intense, brooding, masculine, threatening, imposing, no nonsense, interesting. Don't get me wrong, these are all valid points and all, but they don't keep the transformation from having its share of problems, which I'll delve into and propose fixes for in this video. Problem 1. Its entire premise is questionable. While a large portion of the fandom really likes the idea of Saiyans returning to their roots, embracing their primal simian nature, and that it's actually what lets the Saiyans develop their full potential, this idea seems to have originated in Dragon Ball GT, and therefore was conceived by Toei Animation's writers. In the canon material, a Saiyan having a tail was neither stronger nor weaker for it, if we discount the tail being a weak spot if untrained, and the only benefit of having one was the ability to turn Ozaru. Toriyama always seemed to have been steering the Saiyans away from their monkey heritage, as if it was an afterthought, an evolutionary dead end. Sure, the Ozaru transformation had a role to play back in the days of the regular Saiyans, but once the legendary transformation of Super Saiyan came into the picture, it was never even mentioned again. This point seems to have been driven home even harder with Dragon Ball Super's 2 new transformations, as well as Universe 6 Saiyans being written to have evolved past having tails at all. There was even a lore note in DBZ Kakarot mentioning that a Saiyan's tail will not grow back if he himself has grown stronger than a great ape in base form, though that assertion is admittedly pretty vague, and its validity is probably to be taken at your discretion due to the source being a game. However, all of the above shows quite clearly what Toriyama's angle always was, to move past the mundane into the legendary and then into the divine. While the Ozaru transformation is an expression of the beastly, primal nature of the Saiyans, it is indeed mundane. There is nothing special, unique, or exclusive about it. Every single Saiyan is capable of transforming, given the right conditions. The writers of GT instead had the Saiyans revisit the past, make a regression of sorts, towards something previously abandoned as unnecessary and unhelpful, and try to create a form that somehow mixes the human form of the Saiyan with the ferocity of the Ozaru. That is the complete direct opposite of what Toriyama was interested in pursuing, as proven later on in DB Super, if there were even any doubts in Z. Also, even the writers of GT must have surely realized the flaws of such an idea from a power scaling perspective, forcing them to create the Golden Ozaru, supposedly a combination of Super Saiyan and the giant ape form, somehow merging the mundane and the legendary. Which brings me to the next problem. Problem 2. The color scheme. Even if you like Super Saiyan 4, there's a good chance you may have thought that its color scheme is a bit weird. I think it's all over the place. The aura is golden, like that of the Super Saiyan forms, but the hair is black and the fur is red. Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru said that they chose red for the fur because it seemed like a strong color. But to me it looks completely random, unrelated to anything prior, and not adequately explained by the form's origins. I may be slightly biased, because I always thought Toei Animation back in those days was best not to be allowed to come up with color schemes by themselves. Remember Vegeta's first appearance? He always reminded me of those early 90s poor Chinese knockoffs, where the bootleggers seem to have accidentally run out of proper dyes, or just used whatever they had in stock indiscriminately. Unfortunately, Super Saiyan 4 does appear to suffer of the same issues with its red fur. Sorry, but that's just how I've always felt about it. Strangely enough, Toei did at one point consider making the hair golden to preserve the connection to the previous Super Saiyan transformations, but they decided that black went better with the red fur. That there shows you some really screwed up priorities. Keeping the fur red because it looks strong and cool was higher on the priority list than making the hair golden so the form looks like it makes sense. Problem 3. It doesn't portray the tier of strength it's meant to have very well. That is largely the consequence of the hair being black, which is something reminiscent of the base form, more so than of the Super Saiyan transformations. The red fur does not remind one of Super Saiyan either. Super Saiyan's golden hair and aura were the signs of a legendary warrior, a certain way to tell that someone has transcended their regular nature and become something extraordinary. Super Saiyan 4's design eliminates all that, the aura being the sole reminder of the golden glory of the previous forms. SSJ4 sure looks mean and tough and imposing, but I struggle to think it appears stronger or more special than the previous forms because of its inexplicable color scheme. Problem 4. The name. This opinion isn't even very controversial these days. Super Saiyan 4 being called that makes very little sense, considering what it looks like and how it's achieved. The name suggests it comes next in the sequence of Super Saiyan forms, each one of which built upon the previous one. SSJ does not build upon any of the preceding Super Saiyan forms in any way, due to the poorly thought out design. It could have, but it doesn't, so it feels rather off to be called Super Saiyan 4. Solutions. How to fix Super Saiyan 4. Truly fixing Super Saiyan 4 and successfully incorporating it into the main Dragon Ball continuity would be quite easy. All you have to do is change the design so that it's more focused. Instead of making it look 75% mundane and pitch it as stronger than the golden glowing legendary forms, make it look 100% mundane and pitch it as standing beneath them. The only change you would really need to make is to make the fur brown. Rename the form to Primal Saiyan, Primaru Saiyajin. Have it be achieved in a similar fashion as Ultra Instinct was explained to be achieved by Maris. First, the Saiyan must be able to control their great ape form to the point of speech, just as Vegeta demonstrated when he first came to Earth. Then the Saiyan must be overwhelmed by strong emotion, be it anger or grief or sadness, but collect himself and calm down. That will trigger the transformation back to a human shape and grant the lucky warrior the Primal Saiyan form. This transformation would be very easy to sustain for prolonged periods, give the Saiyan a more durable body compared to another Saiyan of the same power level in the base form, and make them immune to involuntary Ozaru transformations, even when exposed to enough radiation to normally trigger the transformation, as a token of the Saiyan mastering their primal, simian side to the highest possible degree. Itself, it would require the tail being present to take on, but not the moonlight it could be transformed into at will. It would also allow free use of dangerous techniques such as Kaioken, due to fortifying the body physically, not just due to increased ki. The power level would rise 10 times, just like with the Great Ape transformation. I know this might not seem very impressive, but keep in mind that Goku mentioned that Ozaru Vegeta, and I quote, didn't get any slower when transformed. That could be taken to mean that he didn't get any faster either, which in turn means that the Ozaru form does not raise one's speed proportionately to one's power. The speed remains as it was prior to the transformation, and I don't need to remind you what happens when your speed doesn't match your brawn. The Primal Saiyan would be therefore superior to the Great Ape transformation because it would offer a proportionate increase in speed. You'll definitely be wanting to ask me, is that it? Certainly seems rather unimpressive in the grand scheme of things, sure, but such a transformation could definitely have its uses. Imagine if Goku learned to master this form on Namek, or after healing up from his fight with Vegeta, back on Earth. He could find his tail miraculously restored, and inspired by Vegeta's own ability to speak while a great ape, he could decide that he also wanted to pursue this ability. He would soon succeed, but not before seriously damaging a nearby town. Once he realized what he did, with a now conscious mind, he'd be thrown into extreme fury at himself for allowing this to happen. But after a while, he would collect himself, obtaining this new powerful furry body. He would then depart towards Namek as normal. His training on the way to Namek would be the same, with him ending up with a power level of 90,000, which makes 900,000 when in this new form. He would therefore not need to use Kaioken on Ginyu, instead showing off this form. Ginyu's scouter would explode, with the last figure being 250,000, making Ginyu just as excited at the prospect of taking Goku's body as he originally was. But Goku's naivete wouldn't have prevented it, even with this new form. Ginyu's power after taking over Goku's body in this form would be greater than in the original series, since it's a transformation, not a technique. So he would do much better against Krillin and Gohan, but Vegeta would still beat him senseless, leading to the same outcome as in the original series. Goku gets back his body, goes to heal up, and arrives only when Frieza's already in his final form. That said, with this transformation in Goku's repertoire, his Zenkai boost from healing wouldn't have to be as ridiculous as it was in the manga. In fact, all he would need for the battle to play out just as it did originally is a power of 300,000. With the transformation, he could go up to 3 million and 60 million when putting Kaioken times 20 on top of it. However, Goku would lose his tail by a sneak attack from Frieza just before he finishes preparing the Spirit Bomb, leaving him on the verge of death. No longer able to compete, he gets shredded, but just as he's about to die, he'd remember he did in fact have one more Senzu Bean on him, yay for Deus Ex Machina. He'd get a Zenkai up to 3 million, and the remainder of the fight would have played out normally. He'd unlock Super Saiyan, beat Frieza, and so on. The Primal Saiyan would by then be replaced by the Super Saiyan forms, and the series would continue as normal. Is that it, you'll ask? Well, I had in mind something more for the Primal Saiyan. While the series would have played out just as it did, with the Super Saiyan transformations being an apt replacement for the primal form, after having his ass beaten by Lord Beerus, Goku could have decided to, for example, use the Dragon Balls to restore his tail, and find that he has an easy time combining the Primal Saiyan with all his Super Saiyan transformations, giving him a 10 times bonus on top of them. Gold hair, gold fur. If you ask me, that is what SSJ4 should have looked like from the beginning. They made the golden Ozaru specifically to justify this concept, and then they went with black base-like hair and random red fur. Why not have them golden? Then it would have felt more justified. Then it would have made sense. Though, if you thought about it long and hard enough, a regular Ozaru equivalent would still feel logical to have, a requirement which our Primal Saiyan form satisfies. Also, considering Toriyama's recent stance on Super Saiyan 2 and 3 as being simply powered-up versions of Super Saiyan, all the golden-haired forms could simply be treated as one for the purposes of this new transformation, represented by Super Saiyan 3's multiplier of 400 times. That boost could be combined with the 10 times multiplier of the primal form, making it 4,000 times, which is a popular figure for SSJ4's multiplier among the fandom. This new form would be called the Primal Super Saiyan, this time maintaining a strong connection to the golden-haired forms, almost to the point of deserving to actually be called Super Saiyan 4. And yet, this Primal Super Saiyan would still not be enough to give Beerus a fun experience, so the usual SSJ God story would play out, and afterwards SSJ Blue would be unlocked as normal. And of course, it could be immediately combined with the Primal Saiyan form to produce Primal Super Saiyan Blue, the ultimate combination of man, ape, and god. Wouldn't having 3 variations of Super Saiyan 4 that make sense with their color schemes be more fun than the single one we got? For some final words. To summarize, Super Saiyan 4 was an interesting concept, but the design problems it had have always prevented me from treating it seriously. That said, if it had been fixed with the ideas I provided, I would enjoy the form very much. As for the chances of Super Saiyan 4 ever making it to the primary timeline, or canon if you will, I think they are very slim, simply because of Toriyama considering the monkey traits anachronistic and something to be abandoned in favor of something superior, legend and godhood. That said, Toriyama and Toei themselves indeed have already fixed Super Saiyan 4 as best as they could. They did it with Broly's wrathful form. It features pretty much everything, or at least most of what people like about Super Saiyan 4. Black wild hair, eyes with black pupils and yellow irises, increased muscularity, and this particular intensity of the face and facial expressions. But what's even better is that this form doesn't feature or require a tail and has no fur, eliminating the problem completely rather than trying to work around it as we have tried in this video. Furthermore, it being the power of an Ozaru inside the body of a man, it's naturally placed lower than the Super Saiyan transformation, just as it should have been in the first place. The mundane will always be below the legendary. And it still didn't prevent Broly from kicking the asses of two bona fide Super Saiyan gods. So even though it's lower than Super Saiyan in the transformation hierarchy, Broly's individual power in the state was already unbelievable. This form was a clear nod to SSJ4 in its design and explanation, and it was done better than SSJ4 itself, at least in my opinion. So enjoy it, as that is your canon Super Saiyan 4. Let me know what you think about the video and the ideas I had in the comments section below, and see you in the future when I feel like talking about some more Dragon Ball topics. Maybe. Cheers!